So this was our group of students that we took from Livingston Range. It was a really neat opportunity prior to this conference, is all of the Palliser students that were the presenters, like Nick and Amy's groups, came here. And we ran that professional development out of here, which was really neat for Livingston Range to be such a big part of this, this symposium. The symposium is for students all across Southern Alberta and also a few select students, or schools, I should say, in Calgary. So that was a really awesome experience and had some great changes from it. And Nick's going to speak to one of the differences that came in their school after this. So, yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of days after we went to this conference, Walsh had its first completely student-led assembly. We played some games that we learned at the conference. We had a postseason volleyball game, and we drew names for prizes, and it was a whole lot of work, but also a lot of fun. And yeah, it was the first time that student leadership had really taken on that active role in leading an assembly because of the conference.
Awesome. Cool. And the next thing is we've had Christmas, and it's I've been meeting with and speaking with a number of our different schools, and I hope that you're able to get into the schools before Christmas and see what the schools are doing. Our student leaders are doing such a remarkable job of promoting giving and promoting school spirit. This year's at Livingston, they're doing a Givingston, and they're challenging their teams. And so it's becoming a little bit of a competition, which, you know, our schools like to do that, and seeing what we can bring in for food drives. We have, I believe here, just need to grab my notes, in the Crow's Nest Pass, they've done a remarkable, absolutely remarkable 12 Days of Christmas, where they've actually raised over $5,000 in creating stockings for those vulnerable students that need that. So that's really, really remarkable. Matthew Halt and I was in there just the other day for a 4-H Christmas dance, and they have colored trees, and it's really neat with what they're doing. JT Foster, the student leaders are doing Santa sleigh rides. We have Claire's Home at Willow Creek is doing reindeer. So they're having reindeer games and sponsoring toy drives. So once again, what I'm so impressed with is that this student-led. And I think it just speaks to how important it is to share that responsibility and build that capacity with our students to be as awesome as we know that they can be, and that they are, because Nick's a prime example of that. So, yeah. Moving forward, we have a number of different activities that we will be doing in January and February. So we will be checking in. Because of transportation and cost piece, we are doing a lot of Google Hangout meetings. We will have a Google Drive that we're working with to share ideas and to share documents. In March, we plan to meet with the Health and Wellness Committee. So we're actually going to gather the health champions from each school and the student leadership group and come up with, once again, an action item. We believe that action is what moves things forward. There's lots of visioning, and we can have lots of goals, but we need to see those actions from it. Our overall goal this year, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so basically one of our main goals across the schools is to go to ACELIC again. This year it's held between Drumheller and Strathmore, and ACELIC is the Alberta Student Leadership Conference, and last year students from LRSD went, and it was a really awesome experience, really impactful, and it made a really big difference in our schools as to how our leadership is run and a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nick. And so we were also, it was really neat being there. We were also one of the only divisions that had board members there and administration. And they were just like, yeah, we'll waive those fees. That's phenomenal. It's so cool that that your board has recognized that this is a really big priority. And so we just want to show our gratitude and say thank you for recognizing that our student leadership is a priority in this division. And we're honored to be part of that. We look forward to also challenging our student leaders to run a division-wide student leadership day. So once again, they have to plan that yet, so that all the details will be announced in the spring. But we look forward to sharing those results with you, and hopefully it continues to build spirit. And yeah. Awesome. Any questions?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? I have something I have to say. This is one of my favorite parts and one of my favorite committees. I just can't speak enough of how important I feel it is that students have a voice and that we are teaching them to be leaders within their own school division and to promote themselves further into life too. And I just think students teaching students is just such a great way for kids to understand and to motivate each other, and it's phenomenal, and you guys are doing a great job. So thank you. Trustee Yegas?
I just want to say I'm really impressed with the evolution of this group because I was around when it started, basically, and I really see now how great it is with the student leadership and also the staff leadership that is going on, you know, like the people, the staff that are really taking part in it and helping the students. And we're really looking forward to all of the future things we're going to do. And hopefully as a board, we'll all be getting invited to some of the events because it's exciting to see that. So thank you.
Trustee Poitras?
As you guys do these events and go to, different, like the ACELIT conference and plan your retreats and stuff, how is it that you find new students to be involved in leadership and share your leadership with other students and encourage those who maybe don't feel like leaders to get involved and become leaders?
So currently in the regional council, we have a couple of junior high, and so we're hoping that as those junior high students join, that they'll kind of like spread the word of like kind of the more fun aspects, so that then when they come into senior high and have more work to do regarding it, then they still see the benefits regarding that.
Yeah, thanks. We also, we would love to be able to open up the regional council to everyone. That would be ideal, but feasibility is a little unrealistic. So we had the student councils or the student leadership groups choose those 5 students that they thought were going to represent their school, and those are the ones that come to our regular meetings. We try and also have events such as the symposium, which was open to anyone who wanted to participate in that. ACELIC is another event that will be open to not just the council students. ACELIC, our biggest piece for that, and I hate to throw it and ask, but we will be looking for local sponsorships. And so the Elks, we'll have, many of our students have written letters to groups and governing bodies and local support groups that can help with those funding pieces. So that would be an ask that I might have, is that if you are sitting on any of those boards or have any connections, please let us know, because we want to send as many students as we can. From those meetings, when the students come back from the regional council, they then report back to the students, and hopefully within their own student leadership group or their student council, they can share that excitement, and we'll have new students every year. Yeah.
Trustee Long?
2 things, Eliza. Last week you contacted me about the events that were going on at CCHS.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to do that every month?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
and just this way, so that it's not a lot of work for you, if you did the same email out,
Yeah.
and we each responded telling you what we're doing this month, could you send them all on to me?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So all it would be, you just have to forward
Yep.
what each school has sent to you, and then I would prepare something for the board each month.
That sounds great.
Because if they saw the things that
Yep.
you and I saw last week, wow. And something I've talked about here before is we don't share enough. As trustees, we don't share about what our schools are doing,
Yep.
and we should be. And I would totally look after that.
Sure. Yeah.
If you would just once a month find out what the schools are doing, and then if you would just forward it all to me, I'll put it together.
Sure. I would love to do that. Thanks.
And the other thing is, do you know who Aidan Douglas is?
Yes, I do.
So you're aware of where he's going right now with Ottawa, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. And John's looking at me going, huh? And that's why I'd like you to do that for me. Mm-hmm. Would you do that for me each month?
By all means. I think it's a great reminder that sometimes we don't brag We
Yes.
don't brag enough. And, you know, as our representation, it's important that you know the awesomeness that is happening within each school. And so I can absolutely, don't mind sharing that.
Just ask Lori if I could add something here too. Really appreciate, well, Nick for stepping forward and be a leader within our jurisdiction. That's awesome. It's good to hear from you on these occasions. And Eliza, you know, has done a great job. Eliza has a long history with our FACES program, which we also know has grown and evolved over the years and become quite a tremendous opportunity for kids. And I would say, you know, a lot of them express the ideas that it's been life-changing for them. And we thought part of this initiative and bringing Eliza on board with this piece in the division is we've had every summer these great experiences for kids, and we have maybe left it to chance, you know, individually that the things that they learned there would carry on with them throughout the rest of their high school and then into life. But we thought, you know, why don't we leverage that FACES opportunity a little bit more, have Eliza, who has been very involved with our FACES principal, right, for the last couple of years, be more involved with our student leadership groups so that those same principles that are being taught through the summer can then continue on, and kids can not just, you know, put them on the back burner or on the top shelf for a little bit. They can continue to keep them at the forefront of their minds and in their everyday actions. So thank you, Eliza, for moving this forward. It sounds incredible. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's totally an honor. I want to speak to that just really quickly, if you don't mind, Daryl, too. It was important when we chatted about that as an honor to share what some of the experiences and things we do at FACES, but also to be able to include that same experience for those who haven't gone to FACES. And we talked about that at our retreat, how we may be going to a venue that, yeah, FACES is held at, but not everybody has been to FACES yet, or not everybody chose to go to FACES. And so we talked a lot about how we can still share the common principles and the message, but in our regional council way. And so similar vocabulary, similar concepts, but making sure it's with regional council. So yeah, thank you, Daryl.
Thank you guys both very much for coming today and presenting to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have F2, our behavior support team, Kevin Burbeck, and behavioral specialist teacher, and Shannon Fraser, behavior support worker, will present an update on the behavior support team throughout the division. Welcome. So I just need you to mic up. Just because we're recording, it needs to be heard through so one of you will have a mic and one of you will have the. Great job. You could just clip it on your tie, Kevin, even. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so no need for a title slide. You just introduced us fantastically. This is going to be an update as to our activities currently so far this year and as we evolve for the rest of this year. And my mic isn't even on. Wonderful. Yes. Is that good? Beautiful. Thanks, Lacey. Okay. So, we go to the next slide. So yes, we are still the behavior support team. I am still Kevin Verberg, and you are still?
I'm still Shannon. Yep.
Everything's the same as before, as far as personnel goes. But we are part of the learning services team under the sage direction of Rich Feller. And we work collaboratively with a wide range of learning services team members as well. So we'll skip this slide, actually. So we wanted to break this up into how we got here as far as behavior supports in the division, talk a little bit about some of the feedback we received from the administrative and LSTs throughout the division, and then we can wrap up by talking a bit about some of the proposals and ideas as how we can expand from here and the feedback on those as well.
And we're going to do it in 15 minutes.
Turn it on. You just gotta
To talk closer.
enunciate louder.
And we will get done in 15 minutes, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. Okay. So, can I start?
Yep.
Excellent. So these are some of the supports that we offered in previous years, year 1 and year 2. We divide it between universal, targeted, and intensive individualized. What's really noteworthy is that the longer we work as a team providing behavior-based supports, the direct relationship is a reduction in the amount of time spent with intensive individualized cases. I perceive it as capacity building, and our data shows that. And that provides us opportunities to do more proactive, wide-based opportunities to build behavior leadership within our schools, positive behavior leadership.
So we are still doing all of these, but this is what we've primarily focused on the last few years. So Universal Supports was our CEVA training, which is the crisis management kind of program that this division uses, as well as most of Zone 6. Various professional development we've provided throughout the division, book studies, and then the peer mentoring program.
And 2-school pilot was last year, and that's expanded since then. Targeted supports, we're doing more events-based data collection, as well as parent-home communication systems. We started that we tried it a little bit in our first year. We've expanded a little bit, but we've really created a lot of systems to be able to take that type of stuff on scale and beyond ourselves having to watch and monitor it all the time. We've also supported in creating behavior support, but also class-wide profile plans, because then we can focus on teacher capacity as opposed to individual student needs, which is important as well, but now we can take a proactive approach, creating classrooms that meet the needs of their students, as opposed to students having to conform to what a classroom structure traditionally was.
And so those class-wide profiles come from Shelley Moore, and it's really focusing on inclusion and making that environment suited for all the students, not just a few. So then we go into the intensive individualized supports, which is kind of what we really focused a lot on the first year, which was individual observations and functional behavioral assessments, individual case consultations with the school teams, as well as consultations with extended partners. So the medical community, mental health, RCSD, and the families.
And broadly speaking too, we do a lot more now collaboratively, but not always together. So we're able to really broaden our impact by being at separate schools, splitting up, bringing ourselves together. And it's not that we take on certain cases and separate them, but we do have separate roles within our cases, which allow us various different access points in providing those supports and allows us to be more fluid and dynamic with all those schools. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And so, shall I? Okay, so between from September and December, we've made a point to take the December slot as far as our presentations. It gives us a good year-over-year comparison as to the number of individual cases we've been working with. It's noteworthy to say that although it says 62 active cases currently, we really only have to keep our minds steady to about 10 to 20 of them at any given time. And that's because although a lot of those 62 cases all of those are still active and available for our supports, oftentimes just providing some advice and supports really gives the schools what they need to be able to continue. And they're always welcome to call and email us if they need supports. The difference between this year and last year is that we don't need as many calls because they know what they're doing a lot more. I very rarely am answering the same question that I've had to before, which is great, but it's also challenging because the questions I get asked are the hardest ones. And if I were to rank kind of low, medium, high needs cases, relatively speaking, it's pretty much predominantly like that 10 to 20 is those highest of the high needs, where it's understandable and desirable that they would be reaching out for supports on the regular. That's really all I think that's worth noting here.
Yeah. Are PUF funds included in these numbers? PUF kids included?
Kids who are included in PUF, so two sides. Yes, they are included. We have, of those, our grade distribution puts, I think, only about 3 or 4 active cases currently from PUF. 0.025 FTE is what comes out of Lisa's PUF kind of allotment as for our team. And we also do actually, I have a few students in my peer mentor program who have mentee students who are PUF students as well. And so that's a great access point as well.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we can go to the next one. So the next one just kind of gives you a little bit of a summary of where our cases are. So 37 active cases right now that we're actually involved with, where they're phoning or we're checking in on them. 7 that are on hold.
So for some various reason, i.e. they did the referral, but then the need subsided temporarily, and so that referral is active, but on hold should the need rise.
14 non-active, so that would be the ones that just they really did well last year and they don't need our supports, but we haven't quite closed the file yet.
We like to keep them on our records for at least a year because sometimes various changes throughout the year can cause intermittent challenges, and so it's important that we don't forget about these kids.
3 not active and dormant, and so those ones are closer to being closed, and yeah.
Yeah, and then
We'll
that's
get
just
them
a
the rest
matter
of
of
this year.
dormant means they connect with us if they need help, but we don't necessarily actively connect with them. 1 pending, and 2 new that'll be reviewed. We review our cases as part of the Learning Services team now. On the first Tuesday of every month, schools are aware of this, so they can submit their referrals 1 week in advance. We review them as a team, which means we can make great team-based decisions and come and provide supports as a team, as opposed to just 2 individuals.
So
Which
I'm
is
sure
a great,
we'll-
actually to point out, because I almost forgot, there was a question last year, I believe it was by John, about how we incorporate mental health supports with behavior-based supports. And that's actually been a really big significant change, in my opinion, improvement, because we are meeting with Kate Schwarzenberger, our clinical team lead, and we are reviewing these referrals together. And so if we find it's like primarily mental health need, but there is classroom behavior challenges, then Kate would lead that case and we would be there right beside them to fill in those gaps. Or if we find math anxiety is a challenge, well then Kathy's gonna join us. She can provide the advice on math. We can provide the advice as to how it goes with behavior. And those schools have their expertise too. So it's not about us coming in externally to provide the expertise. They know their schools, their parents and the students know themselves and their kids. And we know behavior, and we have other learning services team members who know everything else. Okay, so climbing through. We have referrals in all schools but 1 currently, including Colony schools, and actually we're going to be in a new Colony school in the new year as well. Next. Okay, so really the data has shown is that we have built capacity in the past 3 years. So we've done class observations, classroom profiles at those schools. We've done school-based learning support team meetings. So now we're proactively joining school-based learning support team meetings. Our goal is to have a learning services team member participate in at least every other meeting. They can have their own as a school too, but it's great to have that divisional face around the table as students get brought up, helps us to be more proactive. We've been doing professional development. We've done 18 different sessions so far since we've started, various different types. And so far this year, we've done, what, 4 or 5 already?
We've done 2 self-care alone.
I've done
child
teacher to
youth
teacher.
care
We've done
one.
2 SIVA.
Yeah, we've done SIVA and brain development at the high schools.
That's true.
Yeah, there's probably more than
You've
4.
presented on the EA handbook.
Oh yeah, the EA handbook.
We've really evolved our self-care. In fact, have improved it, and I've brought some of that information back to SIVA as they do some of that too.
Yeah.
Yep. And then initiating peer mentoring, capacity building in schools. It's really interesting as I go into some observation assessments, it gives me an opportunity to say, because a lot of that content is on inclusion. So how can we do what we're doing and ask that little bit more, create them as part of current and future community members and support our student leaders in considering those ideas. And so it's great to build capacity in their staff as well, because they read and reflect on those feedback as well. And then the last one. Yes, the Learning Services Resource Library expands and goes viral. It's not just behavior, it's not just special ed, it's the entire Learning Services team. Numeracy, FNMI is in there as well as mental health supports. It's expanded because we get a $3,000 budget as far as the Learning Services Library per year to have giveaways for some of our cases, build resources, build capacity. And so at year 3, we've invested about $9,000 in these types of supports, and they are making a big difference with expensive items that schools might not be able to pay for themselves or to trial out. And it's been a really great service for all areas of learning, not simply just behavior-based. All right. So then versus now, I just already reiterated that. We're doing more intensive in universal and still meeting the needs of intensive individualized supports while finding more opportunities to be proactive. On we go. So here's the feedback data.
We do a feedback survey every year. This is our 4th one, actually. I think we did 2 1 year. And it really helps give us feedback on what the schools are liking about what we're doing, what supports they might need us to do more of, or what they think we can improve on.
And whether or not we're worth the money.
Absolutely. And so it's been very helpful and humbling at times.
Indeed. And it's great. Lots of constructive feedback. Looking at this chart, if you look at the various items on there, you can see that the top 2 are still intensive individualized based. However, if you were to have looked at this chart, 2 years ago, it would have predominantly been those first two wedges. It's great that we can provide an eclectic array of supports and services to all of our schools.
And that it's starting to spread out, and we are doing a lot more proactive instead of the reactive.
And our anecdotal data is saying that we're getting more interest in schools because they've had good feedback based on staff room conversations that it worked well with me. Now we can try here, and there's less reluctance. So the next ones are rating scales, 1 being absolutely not, 5 yes, absolutely. So are we meeting the school's needs? Everyone said 4 or 5, average 4.74. So click. We can do a couple in here. Worth the investment. Again, 4.79. Everybody except for 1 said 4 or 5. I'll let you do the next one.
And they're anonymous, so we don't get to know who doesn't think we're worthwhile.
Or neutral on that
neutral.
point. Jeez.
So this one was interesting. It goes with LRSD's goal of successful all learners. And again, all but one believed that it was a 4 or 5, that we are making that a priority.
And that's the main feedback for the information that we got from the schools. Anecdotally, it was consistent with what you saw in the numbers. Some of it was saying that they think it would be great if we could provide services faster, more fluidly, but recognize that we're humans and there's only 7 days in a week and 24 hours in a day. And so I think that's basically the feedback is we like it and more, but we understand. That's basically what we're hearing a lot of. So what's on the go? What's in the works for this year? Here is stuff that we've started and will be continuing this year. Peer mentoring, family supports programming. You're doing some work with Kate.
Yeah, so the family support programming, it was kind of one of the things we found as a whole with our mental health and behavior is that there's gaps in making that connection with families and how to bring them involved in the children's learning and programming. So Kate is going to, I think, bring in some things that she's familiar with parenting and see how we can make connections.
We'll be expanding our SEVA team. We have 2 on maternity leave, so we'll be getting 2 new trainers. One is Andrew Bennett, our outreach teacher for here in Crossroads, and the other is Alyssa Fisher. She's our learning support teacher at Willow Creek Composite. It's great that we're getting, again, a wide variety of types of professionals when we think of our trainers, as well as now we're up to 129 trained staff members. We're hoping to get all paraprofessional staffs trained consistently by the end of the year as the norm. Teachers and administrators and LSTs also need to be trained for best practices, accountability, and paperwork, and teachers as well. And our hope is to get the division done, trained as the norm, hopefully by the end of next year. Rolling out the new referral system. There's a lot to learn and grow on here, and we'll be working on that and getting some feedback. But overall, it's been a success. I think a lot of people say it's a decent amount of work to get the referrals in, but that's because the services provided are in-depth and thorough. But people haven't said, like, we would refer if it wasn't so difficult. It's not so bad. But it's helping us get a really great information about all of our students.
Well, and it helps the schools look at each student individually and what have we tried to meet the students' needs? Is there expertise and strategies in the school they can access to really look at it all before they come to divisional supports? And then they realize, oh, we do have this in our school already, or no, we have exhausted everything. We need your help.
And that's not because we want to provide barriers to our access, but we want to make sure they're asking themselves first and their local expertise. Okay, other quick things here. Division Behavior Leads Collaboration. So I'm part of a committee where I meet with all the people in my role across Southern Alberta to gain insight and strategies as to common needs and solutions. Online Professional Development Hub for Education Assistance is something that I'll be spending my holiday season working on. And we'll hopefully be ready to roll out right around the end of February. This is going to be a pilot program where we provide opportunities for new hires in the role of education assistant to gain some common knowledge, common language, and have knowledge and access to divisional supports be the norm for them. It's going to be a great way to provide that accountability of common language and support, and meeting our division's duty and obligation to make sure that the students or the staff that work with our kids are properly trained. Increased collaboration of education assistant and CYCW programs at Lethbridge College. I've been part of the committee to rewrite those learner outcomes, and we've been focusing a lot on the behavior skills that we would like to see in our EAs, and incorporating and embedding them into that program. Shannon's been doing some work through the CYCW program.
Yeah, I'm going to be meeting with one of the heads of the Child Youth Care Program in January, and it's to talk about how we can encourage more child and youth care workers to want to work in the school systems. It's kind of an underutilized area for our child and youth care workers. When you're all in it in the beginning, you think you want to go to the group homes, where it's really, really tough, and not realizing how much of a difference we can make in the schools in a much more proactive role. So we're going to get together and talk about maybe getting some more practicum students within our schools so that they can get the experience in the school system.
And our kids can benefit from having those people around too.
Absolutely. Child and youth care workers bring a huge world of expertise in different types of behavior and emotional support.
Exploring staff support networks through crisis response. Something that Shannon really pointed out through our self-care work is that when there's a crisis, whether that be a personal or a school-related crisis, we want to make sure that not only are schools and staff supported in a broad sense, but somebody's reached out to them, and it doesn't have to be some sort of formal process. But you know, we had spouses pass away in our admin teams or get critically ill. We've had crisis happen where really we would like to hope our admin support each other, but sometimes they can't be available given the severity of some of these incidences. We make sure the cavalry comes out when that's needed. But also, it's good to just have people know that we're listening and we respect the humanity of their roles as well. And so that's something that we've been really focusing on.
So Kate and I, again, are going to meet on that next week. Actually, we have it planned. And a lot of agencies throughout Alberta now are going to what we call peer support programs. Child Protection has, because they realize that workers hold the stories of these children and they're heart-wrenching and they slowly eroded us. And then if you've read Jodie Carrington's book, she talks a lot about that as well. Teachers and administrators and support staff carry these stories, and it's so hard sometimes. Are we supporting each other to make sure we're the best for our kids? And so that was something Kate and I wanted to explore and look at. Is there more we can be doing? Are we doing lots? Is it, maybe we are. Right? But just making sure that that was something that we thought about to make sure that our teachers and admin were doing okay and getting the support they need.
Yeah, and the last thing on this list is a book study. It's actually a pretty popular book going viral around the division called Kids These Days. How many times have you listened to this book?
I think I'm on my fourth go.
Yeah, that's her bread and butter. It's a really great book about helping those students who are often misunderstood, have difficult lives that not necessarily relate to us, and how we should be really thinking about the behavior that we see from them and best practices in supporting those kids. It's a good book. It's a good book if you're into some salty language through learning. Okay, peer mentoring. I just want to take a couple minutes and talk a bit about this. So, stats. We went from 6 mentors last year at 2 schools to now 13. Started with 17, but now we're at 13. From 3 schools, we're looking at adding a 4th next semester. We have mentees in 5 schools. Some of them are in elementary schools as well, hoping to be 7 starting next semester. You can go ahead. I'm still running that online program, and the coursework is definitely challenging, but supportive for these mentors as well. We've added a new special task where they have to do a special project with their mentee student and learn from the experience, connecting the material with the work on the ground. Instead of doing it every Friday where they're working with me, now there's 2 weeks throughout the semester which they can concentrate their supports with me and stay focused on being mentors in between. Continuous mentoring program. We had students who really liked this program so much that they wanted to keep going, and so we've created a special projects 20 credits option where they can expand their learning, really up the expectation, and keep on mentoring. We've also did a mentor readiness program. We had a lot of students who have the right personality but maybe not have demonstrated those leadership roles. We don't want to say no to our underdogs. We want to give them the opportunity to develop their skill set ahead of time, where they would be observing a mentor in action and they would be getting credits on being a mentor and being a mentee. We're looking at improved processes for mentee teachers as we talk about how students are going into different schools, communicating different expectations as they pertain to different locations. And I've been talking with Sandra about taking the 3 credits in mentoring, changing the 2 academic credits, and creating an Indigenous leadership program where we can have Indigenous students mentoring each other too. And so that's going to be a potential offshoot. We're looking at piloting that next September. Impact. So here's just a couple quotes that just spoke to me. I could probably find way more, but I was talking to one, and one of them said, I never knew it was like this. I never thought about helping people like this before. Another one inside in the classroom said, teaching to diversity is not about including kids who are different, but teaching to their differences. It's about teaching to what makes them unique, as opposed to accommodating, you'd be good enough, we can make it better if you just did this, like a handicap, as opposed to finding the benefits, values, and strengths of our kids. And it's interesting to see, that's a 10th grader who thought about that. I'd like it if all of our educators knew that. Career lesson. I did a lesson on careers, and not all of them have finished it yet because it's a fairly recent one, but in there, 2 of them said they wanted to be elementary teachers. 3 of them said they wanted to be psychologists. 1 said a forensic psychologist. We had a life coach. 1 said they wanted to be an educational counselor, social worker, addictions counselor, and creative arts therapist. Through that lesson, they look into pay scales, available jobs, and college programs and university programs that we get them to there. The reason why I want to do this program is in the long term, I want to see more of those types of people in our community. All right. Oh, side hustle. So I've been tinkering a little bit in data management because it's an area of personal interest of mine. So because it's been taking a portion of my time, I figured I may as well just list about some of the areas where my fingerprints are on in data. So I've worked with the numeracy and MIPI data. Every single teacher has their own collection of data about their students' ability scores that are based on the strands, and is probably amongst the best in this province as far as individual and group-wide knowledge as your school's students' numeracy strengths and needs. Homestay data, I've been working with the homestay teacher and coordinator, to help manage that database system and create invoices and to track all that. Get summary data. I already talked a bit about that communication systems and ABC data tracking. Now schools can connect with me. I create a template which automatically sends an email. Teachers can collaborate with each other and we get good statistics on that. I've been working with the FNMI data. Daryl and I joined a really great meeting yesterday talking about how we can improve it, and we've already got some systems created in place to help find some areas where we can really connect things like graduation data with the actions we're taking on the ground. That's what I'd like to see, is better connections between what do we do and what are the results. Next, we worked with our FSL data. So right now, our FSLs collect specific anonymous data about their students, so we can get really good deep insight about communities, school, gender, Indigenous, Low German Mennonite, male, female, all of those sub-demographics, and we can use this data to be able to apply for grants, which Kate has said she can be able to do. We can also look at mental health needs based on those subgroups and think about PD and activities based on how we can provide those supports. Met with Laura this morning. I already created a health and safety tracking for first aid and as well as issues tracking to prioritize those needs, create and make sure that we're thinking about how we can keep everybody safe. I wanted to join that committee because we have a lot of education assistants and CYCWs who are really on the front lines when it comes to health and safety, and that's how I got part of that committee, but I also get to make sure everyone's lifting with their legs and walking downstairs safely here at central office. Last up, Learning Services Library. We already talked about that. It's already on the website and it's being used a lot. We've doubled its use every year, and those things are getting used a lot. And then the Learning Services Referrals, I keep the data and statistics on all that information, grade-based and all that, some of it you saw here. And then the next one is Chad actually said he's gonna share me that spreadsheet. So when you get a chance, we'll look at some of the data trends on there too. That's it, that's all I've done there. Next up. Okay, so we gave some ideas, and it's actually really interesting on this. So online PD Hub for EAs and CYCWs, it's coming, but we wanted to get some feedback on that. You can see right there, moderate, large. In the huge benefit, I wanted to say worth more than 10% of our time, because based on what you've heard today, there is an opportunity cost. The more we do, the less of other things we can do, and we need to make sure that they're ready for that. So that's why we added that. So we can go to that. We wanted to create one for learning support teachers as well, as that is a job that sometimes has a decent amount of turnover, and there isn't really a lot of opportunity to learn about the very many different duties you will need for that role. You can see that one has more buy-in than the previous slide. Okay, we had this slide twice. It's so good we did it twice. Increased participation in the peer mentorship program. So I wanted to put that in there. Again, moderate benefit. I think that's partly because some schools use it, some schools don't, and again, more sharing and more opportunities for that, I think would probably increase that. Same thing with the Indigenous leadership, and I think partly it's because the schools that have high Indigenous populations will understandably be more interested in this and our time being used for this than schools with lower populations of Indigenous students. This one I thought was interesting, if you want to speak on it.
So this one was our family-based skills development program. And again, majority of people thought moderate to a huge benefit would it be if we provided some of that support. So I think the schools are seeing that as a gap as well. And I don't know whether that's other agency concerns that families are just kind of feeling unsupported, and whether that's even up to the schools to fill that gap. But I think that that's a trend we're seeing, is that families just don't feel supported.
FSLs do a lot of work with our families, and they do a lot of work with our kids. We do a lot of work with kids and teachers, and we do some work with families. So do admin. What I see is building capacity in the kids surrounding our kids, and the people surrounding our kids should include families, and I do really think that's our next frontier. And so I look forward to it. It's a part of a lot of people's job, and I think it'd be great to create more structures that make it directly a support that we can provide.
This This one was really interesting, and we found this because it's really hard to make sure that we're providing really good life skills type programming for some of our students while making sure that they're getting the best out of their education they can in an inclusive environment. And so some people are really struggling with how do we find that balance, and the offer for us to support in that. I think a lot of people thought there'd be a big benefit in that as well.
The one thing I really like working with Rich is that he doesn't silo my skills. It says behavior specialist teacher here, but he still recognizes that I was a life skills teacher at high schools for 5 years, and I've built programs in that in the past. So he's allowed me to come in and to help provide some good programming, create good IPP goals, and to really consider it for students with significant special needs or students who have life skills needs alongside academic needs. So that would be our students, say, with high functioning autism or something like that.
And supporting and making that connection between functional numeracy and literacy with their academic goals, and as well as their life skill goals as well.
I think this is the last one. We're getting there, eh?
I think this is close to the last one. Yeah.
Good. We thought, because I thought it was so wonderful and inspiring to work with the teachers to teachers presentation, which is with our new teachers, that I thought, why don't we just make it normal for them to get to know us, and we provide supports in the norm for every new teacher, and we focus some of our time on that. There's some of the feedback. I think it really has to do with how many new teachers you have in your school. There we go. We're hopeless, sorry. If I were to go faster, I'd be like, done, all right, go. All right.
Thank you guys very much. That was really great to see the benefits from last year to this year and what's working, and that you don't have to be, like you said, out in the schools every single time now. It's just them coming to you and saying, just quick little, can I answer this question type. So that's really, really great to hear. Thank you.
We didn't want to become out of like our work to become unnecessary. That's why we expanded.
Yeah, I can see that. But thank you guys both for coming.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Oh, yes, indeed. I have one-to-one support. I'm high needs.
If we could just move on to our 3 key messages from today's meetings, if we could come up with 3.
No. 3-year education plan.
The AERR, yes.
In the budget too, the passing of both of those.
Okay, so we got AERR budget.
And the IMR, because I think the schools will be all interested in that. IMR.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Is everybody good with that?
Then can we have the traditional fourth of including what our presentations were?
I know.
There were 3 amazing presentations, so it's hard to not include
Yeah, if we
those.
can just get it like a summary of each one for the 4th one, that would be great.
I think the main one would be the regional council student leader.
Yes, yes. That was going to be my suggestion. I know, we should just put 4 key messages down there. All right, so AERR, budget, IMR, and then we'll combine our 3 presentations for number 4. Great, thanks, everyone. Yep. Trustee Yegas?
Yeah, first of all, I think, I don't know how many council meetings there are, but I hope that this is all going to be put on the websites for the schools so that they get to see this, because I know some of our schools aren't going to have council meetings prior to the next board meeting.
Our key messages. Yeah, they are.
And one other thing, and I should have brought this up after the superintendent's message, but I didn't. I have a request from the Rural Council, from the executive of the Rural Council, to thank Daryl for his excellent note-taking at the Rural Council. We really appreciate him doing the notes, and he does a fantastic job. So thank you, Daryl.
Awesome, thanks, everyone. So now we are going to, can I get somebody to make a motion to go in camera? Thanks, Trustee Burdette at 4:54. Right, everybody, if we Let's back to order. Nikki, is it, we're good? Okay, everybody. Before we adjourn, after an in-camera discussion, we just have a motion to present that Mr. Toon is going to,
Do you have it written down?
no?
That the board authorized the chair and vice chair to commence contract negotiation with the superintendent. Yeah.
Yeah. With the superintendent. Commence, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
To commence, yeah, negotiations, sorry, Nikki. Contract negotiations?
Yeah.
Yeah, contract negotiations,
Contract should be in there, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
with the superintendent. Perfect. Thank you.
so Brad made that motion, open it up for discussion. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn. Lacey. Trustee Poitras. What? You're welcome. Merry Christmas, everybody. Enjoy your turtles.